for our quick session today, all we're going to need is a mat or flat space, and then maybe a block if you've got one, yoga block, or towel. And that's just going to give the legs a little bit of feedback. So start out on the back. So all the way down, shoulders ground, feet ground, hips ground. Your block, towel, or whatever you've got goes between the knees. And this is just going to be a gentle squeeze in for the moment. So with the shoulders grounded and the hips grounded, see if you can also get the mid-back or the back of the floating ribs area to ground down too. Because for a lot of us, if there's back pain issues, it comes from a weakness in that area. So this is a good opportunity to strengthen that area. So keep that grounded. And for the moment, just focus on the breath. So using the whole breathing apparatus. That's the chest, the ribs, the belly, all moving on the inhale, but also moving on the exhale. Because remember, we want a full exchange of air. So full breath in, full breath out. Ujjayi breath if you can manage it, but remember it's more important to simply breathe. So if you're a little congested, just work with it. Breathe through your mouth if you have to, that's fine. Ujjayi breath though is a little constriction in the back of the throat. Sounds like Darth Vader breath in your head, but it's a really great way to get the body to calm down, to get the mind to sort of focus on something besides our to-do list or whatever we've got going on. So again, focusing in on the breath, slowing it down, smoothing it out, avoiding strain. Just take a few moments there, working through those grounding points, finding a place of calm, a place of ease. Now maintaining all of those grounding points, especially the hips and shoulders, mid-back if you can manage it. Inhale the arms up and over, all the way to the ground if you can get that far, and then exhale back down to where you started. And so the action of grounding that mid-back area that I was talking about a little earlier gets a little tougher as the arms come up and over. So too, for that matter, do the shoulders. So see what you can do with those, and just keep the nice, easy flow going. So at the height of the inhale, you want to feel like you're stretching sit bones all the way up to the fingertips. At the bottom of the exhale, you want to feel like everything just releases and settles back into the ground. Keep that smooth flow of breath going throughout, and it's one breath, one motion. Keep it slow. And then think too about the grounding action of the feet. So we're going to focus on the other stuff, but we want to keep the legs at least a little bit active, anchoring the four corners of the feet down. So remember, that does not include the toes. It's the inner and outer toe ball bounce and inner and outer heel. Toes just get to relax. So we're going to change this up just a little bit and start to add a bridge flow. So think about the tailbone lifting up on the inhale. The arms can sweep up, or if you need to stabilize them down, that's fine. But still maintaining that one breath, one motion kind of thing. As we start to lift the hips up, at first we want to make sure that we're not forcing anything or taking anything too fast. So don't worry about anything beyond straight line knees to shoulders. That's fine for now. And try and keep the buttocks area relaxed. If we start to clench that area, it's going to go right into the low back. That's not what we need, especially as we're trying to strengthen it. So I want to keep it nice and long. And then as we get warmer, we start to dome into the chest. That's pulling the sternum towards the chin. Just remember that you want to maintain a curve in the neck, natural curve in the neck, so that we're not flattening it. So that's why it's sternum to chin and not the other way around. And we're still maintaining that black towel or whatever you've got between the knees, and it's going to be a little bit harder to do, and this is where we get some extra engagement of the legs. So let's take one more, taking it back up, round into the chest at least a little bit, and again, tailbone is pressing up, arms just ground down for the moment. Try and flatten the palms down and really check in with the grounding of the shoulders. If the shoulders are down, tailbone is up, feet are grounded. Everything else, buttocks is relaxed, neck is relaxed, head is relaxed. Breathe deeply. Long, smooth, controlled breaths. Again, ujjayi if you can manage it. And then when we take it down, we're going to let the back feel like it's just puddling into the ground. You can swivel the heels out for a moment and really relax down. Notice the extra points of contact of the back on the floor that you might not have felt when we first got down here. And then we're going to go back to that beginning exercise, so we're re-squaring the feet, grounding the shoulders and hips, mid-back if you can manage it, couple flowing breaths here. So everything stays down except for the arms are moving, and then exhaling back to where we started. Again, it's that stretch all the way, sit bones up to the fingertips. So looking for that nice long line. And then going back to the flowing bridge. That's where the hips are moving to. So the tailbone is coming up, chest maybe doming open if you're feeling warm enough by now, and then bringing it back down. So again, taking it up. The next one we're going to hold. So if you want to leave your hands down this time, that's fine. If you want to float them up, you can do that. But again, it's the tailbone pressing up. So we never want to think about the belly button or the belly pressing up. It's really that tailbone, so we're keeping the length in the back. Again, shoulders are grounding, neck is curved off of the mat. If you want to take a little deeper, clasp the hands under the buttocks. Remember, that's still a relaxed buttocks. And round the whole of the arm if you can manage it. So shoulders are grounded, chest is doming up, nice long line in the back, knees squeezing in at least a little bit, keeping the engagement of the legs. Nice, deep, smooth, controlled breaths. And just a couple more of these. Maybe deepening the curve of the back. So when I talk about lengthening of the low back, it's not that we're trying to minimize it in any way. We're not trying to diminish the curve of the low back. Instead, we're trying to take that curve and extend it up into the thoracic back. So that's the upper back. It's that shoulder area that tends to hunch the other direction if we spend too much time over a computer or phone or whatever it is we do. All right, release the arms, walk the shoulders back out to the side. Again, let that back puddle down into the ground. So it's going to feel even more relaxed now as you release down. So enjoying that for a couple more breaths. And we're going to go through that whole cycle one last time. So again, re-squaring the feet, grounding shoulders, hips, mid-back if you can manage it, arms up and over, going for that stretch. Sit bones to fingertips, exhaling back. One more time, up and over. And then taking the hips along for the ride, coming on up into the flowing bridge. Tailbone being the highest point of the spine anyway. Couple of those. And then hips up, shoulders down, rounding the arms eventually, maybe walking the shoulders in. And again, go back to that full breath. Nice and slow and long. This tells our body we're relaxed, we're in control, everything's fine. You see, when we reverse that breath flow and the exhale becomes shorter than the inhale, that triggers the fight or flight response. And that's where we tend to generate a little extra stress in our body that we don't need. And we can actually use that response to reverse when we are feeling stressed and we want to calm down. Slow down the breath, slow down the exhale so it's a little longer, and the body will follow. Anyway, just holding a couple of more breaths. Again, check in. Shoulders grounded, tailbone pressing up, four corners of the feet grounded, nice long low back, doming the chest open. So you should feel like you're domed side to side as well as top to bottom as far as the chest goes. Neck is still curved off of the mat. And then release the hands, walk the shoulders out, take the hips down. And for this round, we're going to finally take our little block or towel or whatever out of the way. Walk the feet out to the side, let the arms relax to the side, and then just windshield wiper the knees back and forth. And so this allows the back to relax and stabilize for a few breaths. I know the first thing you want to do is hug those knees into the chest, resist, give the back a little bit of time to recover from a really deep back bend. And then, after that couple of breaths, allowing the back to relax, now you get to hug the knees into the chest. And so if you've done the exercise and giving yourself the space, this is a great opportunity to massage your back. Massages are sometimes a little bit hard to come by, so we get to utilize the floor and this particular posture to create a little extra massage action. So that's kind of nice. Anyway, take the knees, let them dangle basically over the hips. The feet definitely are dangling. They're just out in space for the moment. Arms are going to reground at the side. And so we're going to take the right hand up and over, but then also the left leg, pressing the heel up, and exhale back down. Then it's going to be left arm and right leg. So we're doing an asymmetric stretch across the back body. Now to add on to it, turn to the left with the same direction as the foot that's coming up, and then back to center. So that's the head turning off to the side. It's going to create a little extra work through the neck. Sometimes that's going to be a thing that we need, especially, like I said, if we've been hunching over a computer or steering wheel or phone or whatever our deal is. Now the key to these is to try and, just like we did with the bridge, create a little bit of continuity, breath, and motion. So as we complete a motion, we're completing the breath and vice versa. So it's a way of engaging the mind. Again, calming the body. And still getting the wonderful stretch and release across the back body. It's also a good way of exercising the brain, especially when we're doing asymmetric things like this. It's a little bit of an extra challenge too, to do things like slow down, for instance, that head turn, so it matches up everything else. Let's do one last set, and then we're going to do a couple of rounds where it's actually just the arms and legs. So now both arms and both legs. Creates a great big long stretch at the back along the ground. And so you're probably going to feel like the back of the hips and the small of the back are really pressing down. So give that one more. And then we're going to take the arms down, leave the legs up. And so now here you might want to modulate what's going on with the legs. If your hamstrings are a little bit tight, keep the knees bent so the heels stay right over the hips. If you've got a little more flexible hamstrings, then great, yeah, straighten the legs. Don't worry about it either way. Whatever you're feeling like you want to do right now is fine. So the low back is on the ground. The hips are still nice and stabilized there. The shoulders are staying on the ground. Again, we're keeping that whole mid-back nice and grounded for strength's sake. But then we're going to inhale, arms up and over, legs just come down a couple inches, especially at first, until we get a sense that we're able to keep that small of the back grounded. So we're just inhaling, legs lower, arms raise. So it's a particular core exercise, stabilizing the back once again. You can play with the range of the legs. Just make sure that you're always keeping that small of the back grounded. So just give that a couple more. And again, play with the leg range. Some people can take it way low and still keep that low back grounded. And that's for the protection of the back. So if we start to let that low back pop up, it destabilizes, and that's not what we want. Anyway, this is going to be another opportunity to hug the knees back into the chest. Give the back a little bit of length. And so that was working the abdominal range all the way from where it connects up at the solar plexus area, completely down to where it connects down at the pubic bone area. So it's a big muscle. And a lot of times we kind of like focused on parts of that. No, that one gets out all, just in case you hadn't noticed. Anyway, from here, we're going to start to work into the obliques. So take the arms out, T-shape either side. Do the best you can. If you don't quite have the room, whatever you need to do, you do. Keep the shoulders grounded. We're going to take the knees and tip them just slightly over to the right and back to center, and then just slightly over to the left. And so you're always keeping that opposite shoulder. And so here, again, you got to play with some ranges. So in general, the knees are moving the general direction of the elbow. The feet, well, if you keep the knees tucked as I'm doing right now, then the feet are where the feet are at. But if you feel like you can start to extend the legs without dropping the knees relative to the torso, see if you can play with that. And then if you've got the range to, partially extend the legs or even fully extend the legs, all you want to do is make sure that you're not letting the opposite shoulder pop up. So I'm kind of shortening my range a little bit because I've got a clearance issue on the one side. But if you look in Light on Yoga, Iyengar's famous book on the practices of physical yoga, and a lot of other things too, but this is called TikTok. And so if you're following along with me, you can feel what it does for that side body. So once again, it's really important to keep the shoulders well grounded. So you're stabilizing specifically that upper body. And then you're always keeping the hip down. You're not letting the knees necessarily drop to the ground. If it happens, well, then just pull them back into the chest, reset, start over. But try and avoid letting the back feel like it's torquing. That's the thing we want to avoid. And so just working back and forth a few more times. Again, play with that range. So we're going to do the last moving one on the left side, then bring the knees completely into a hug into the chest. And I'm just going to drop my knees over to the right so you can see my left shoulder is actually popping up. I'm going to extend the left arm, look over the left shoulder. And so your shoulder may or may not get to the ground. It's fine either way. The legs are on the ground. This is now the point of stabilization here. So I'm stretching all the way along side body, opening up the chest. Again, the gaze can be turning over the left arm so that we get a little bit of release through the neck. Like I said, the opening through the chest. And hopefully some release through that spine that if we've been sitting too much, for instance, is going to feel a little compressed, a little bit tight. And so this is a good way of warming that whole spine, getting a nice deep release on it. taking a few breaths here, and this would be a good point if you wanted to spend a little more time here than I'm doing right now. You can pause, come back to it later. Just kind of hang out as long as you want to do. And then take the knees up to the center and over to the other side. And once again, legs are dropped. I'm reaching back over. I'm going to look over my right shoulder eventually when I stop talking, and just let the shoulder drop down and open up the chest as much as possible. Taking a few breaths here. Neck releasing. Again, the whole side body, the spine, feeling that release. Knees kind of tucked in a little bit. And when we come back out of this, feel free to pick the knees up. Come back to center, and again, give that back a little massage by rocking side to side. From here, we're going to take it into a happy baby, so the knees come wide, feet up, and pull the knees down using the arms, but push up into the hands using the feet. So the legs are engaged, the inner thigh is definitely engaged. So you get a little bit of a stretch there, but for our purposes right now, the focus is actually on the low back. So that area is completely mushed into the ground, flattened out nicely. And so if you want to rock this, again, great way of massaging out that back, especially if it feels a little stressed or tight. And once again, you can spend a little more time here if you want to. You can play with this one. So sometimes I'll kind of rock to the one side and sort of, almost hold one knee down and lean back the other direction, and vice versa. So that you got some very specific areas that might be particularly tight for you. And again, working wherever you need to. And so if I'm doing a fuller class, this next stretch coming up is going to be one that I would leave for the very end, but because I'm so back focused this session, we're going to take it here. So crossing the legs tightly. Remember, we're back focused, not glute focused for the moment. So we want no airspace between the legs. We're going to hug the knees so that we're hanging on to the farthest knee, or if you can't reach that, the farthest thigh. So whatever gives you the strongest connection. And we're hugging the legs completely into the chest. So if I was doing this fully, I would not be able to talk. So we're using all of our arm strength to hug the knees in. For some people, they like to rock this one too, but the focus is really on the low back. So think about the space between the belly button and tailbone. So really the lowest portion of the back. And that's the space that we don't get to stretch very much. So that's sacral back. And just give it a couple of breaths there. And again, if you want to spend more time here, you can always come back to the video later. But give yourself a few moments there. But then just to check in on what you did, bring both feet flat, both knees are up, kind of like how we started out. And you'll feel like one hip is maybe sitting a little bit higher than the other. That's what you stretched, just that back of the hip area. Anyway, going to the other side, you're just reversing across the legs. Again, knees hug back into the chest. You're going to just let the feet dangle. And use the arms to completely hug those legs into the belly, into the chest, whatever is connecting. And again, if you're going behind the thigh, that's fine. This is a spot too. Some people have a little harder time reaching around the legs. You can use a strap, or if you don't have a yoga strap, use a belt. Actually, recommend bathrobe belts because that's going to be soft and strong. Anyway, hugging the legs in. And then from there, release. If you want to spend a little shavasana time, be great. Otherwise, just finishing up here. So thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure to join you with this practice today. Thank you.